the global coverage. I mean, we're talking 90% of global oil and gas supply and demand that we cover through the countries that are active in the IEF, and the uniqueness also of the sort of the neutral position, the position as a neutral facilitator of the dialogue, because we are not consuming countries, we're not producing countries, we are incorporating both and including the transit countries and including the emerging economies. So in that sense, I think that it is sort of the trend that we are bound to play this larger role. I mean, of course, cooperating with an IEA, cooperating with OPEC and others, and that is another issue that I think is going to be much more. That we will see much more in the future, much closer cooperation between these three organizations, IEA, IEF, OPEC, and even others, in order, again, to tackle the important issues together.
I just want to sort of touch on one thing, obviously, that's very important to the IEF Secretariat, and that's JODI and the Joint Oil Data Initiative. There's obviously been a lot of positive noises made about JODI and its importance for transparency and improving transparency. But there's also been sort of noises made that it needs to sort of maybe expand and maybe sort of improve in some areas. What do you sort of hope from JODI sort of in the coming years?
Well, I think the good news is that definitely JODI has improved tremendously. I mean, the submissions of countries, the consistency of that, the completeness of that, the timeliness has improved really significantly in the last 2 years. That is the good news. The not so good news, I won't call it bad news, but a bit disappointing news is that this kind of improvement seems to be stagnating now. So we need to better understand together with all the JODI partner organizations, with IEA, OPEC and others, why is that the case and what can be done to pick up again this path of improvement. So we do need to do more. We need to work harder and on tackling these issues and further improving JODI. That's number one. Number two, we do need at the same time to indeed to look at the expansion of JODI. There is now underway a trial for expansion to natural gas, because the natural gas market is also increasingly globalizing, particularly through LNG, where the previously regional markets are more and more interconnected, and we need to move the transparency of the gas market forward. Why? Because as it becomes more globalized, this issue of transparency becomes also increasingly important, and it will take a long time. We do not need to, or we shouldn't be expecting any quick results there, but as the Chinese say, a long journey. I mean, it starts with a first step, and we need to take these first steps now in order, many years down the road, to have greater transparency in the gas market. That's one area of expansion. The other area is an area of where JODI would expand to annual data on capacity expansion, upstream, downstream, oil and gas, in order to better understand how much investment is taking place at the global level. And then you would be much better placed if we would have a greater transparency in this area to assess how sort of the demand-supply balance medium term down the line looks like, because you could confront that with demand projections and you could discuss again jointly with IEA, OPEC and others how the demand-supply balance looks, and to better understand and make the market better understand how we jointly assess this kind of thing. So yes, there is definitely going to be a lot of activity and increased, enhanced activity on JODI in the years to come.
Just a couple of other questions just to finish with. I mean, in terms of looking at the bigger picture, I mean, how do you sort of see the energy market developing in the years ahead? And in terms of looking at that in terms of the producer-consumer dialogue, how do you sort of see those two sort of developing?
Well, I think the uncertainties, the challenges that the energy sector is facing are, I think, unprecedented in terms of the scale and the magnitude. I mean, take an important point as investment. We need tremendous investment in the decades to come to counter decline rates in oil and gas, and also to meet future energy demand, because we will see demand still growing in the decades to come because of population growth, because of rising living standards in developing countries. So we need tremendous investment to make that happen. Yet the investment climate, or the conditions for investment, are more uncertain than ever. Where is the world economy going? Are we going to get what kind of recovery will we see? Slow, fast, somewhere in between. This creates tremendous uncertainty. We have been talking about the volatility in prices. Again, this tremendous volatility is an enemy of investment. The more volatility, the more cautious investors are. So this kind of uncertainty is already there. Then put on top of that the tremendous challenge of climate change. Energy sector is expected to contribute significantly to combating, to mitigating climate change, cleaning up fossil fuel production and consumption. These are huge transitions, again, which even require an even higher investment than we already were talking about just to meet the future demand. So you put that all together, and the lack of a stable investment framework also for clean energy, for carbon, price on carbon, for carbon capture and storage, all these kind of things, makes it tremendously difficult, I have to say. And this is, turn it around, this is where we come in, I think, as producer-consumer dialogue. I mean, what we need to ask ourselves the question, what can we do to at least mitigate that, to make it reduce these uncertainties? What can we recommend to governments? And again, it's coming back to transparency. I mean, there's better transparency on the recent history of Jody, what is happening now in the oil market and in the recent past. It's better transparency on future data, investment, where is the market, what is underway, where is it heading, what is the demand-supply balance, and 3 times transparency, also better transparency on policies. We do not have enough policy transparency. It's not only about market transparency, it's also about policy transparency. Where are the transparency, or how can we improve the transparency of energy and environmental policies that countries are embarking on, important countries are embarking on, because we need together to know better where these policies are heading, what the impact is on oil and gas demand in the future, in order again to improve, or at least to reduce the uncertainty for producers, for producing countries. So all of that is a tremendous challenge, which we do need to face, and we do need to tackle.
So you think that the IEF can be involved in kind of improving the transparency of environmental and energy policies? That's kind of a key thing as well.
Well, we need to. This needs to be, and already is, part of the dialogue between producing and consuming countries. And to mention just one example, in 2 years ago at the IEF in Rome, we had a call from ministers to look at the potential, but also the limitations of biofuels. I mean, this is just but a substantial part of this kind of uncertainty of policies. So what we did is actually we asked 2 really authorities in the energy world, the previous executive director of IEA, Claude Mandil, and the previous acting secretary general of OPEC, Adnan Shihab Eldin. They together made an assessment of biofuels based on everything that is out there in the world, to look at the potential and also the limitations. And they came up, which was an input, or is an input, to this IEF ministerial meeting,